The U.S. men's national team has two games. On Saturday, they will face South Korea in Harrison, New Jersey. Then on Tuesday, it will be Japan in Columbus, Ohio. We will do live post-game shows after each of those matches. I'm hearing rumors that on Saturday, Stu Holden might be joining
Oh,
us, which is
wow. All
exciting.
right.
Some roster news. Christian Roldan has been added fresh off his Leagues Cup triumph with Seattle. So that makes 24 players now, 13 from MLS. So Pochettino fulfilling his MLS quota and making his paymaster Don Garber happy.
Yes, they're selling out of tinfoil when it comes to the American soccer nation out there. Look, as to preface this, as we go into this window, I think that there are a lot of people, and I think I would even include myself here, that are a little confused as to how we should approach this window in terms of assessing what's going on. We know that Pochettino has, in the selections that he had made and the way that he has talked about it, already kind of said, I'm still looking at players. But we also know that the World Cup is barreling down the tracks. We have, after this, another 4, let's say 8 games, and even that's debatable in terms of friendlies before the World Cup. So it is right around the corner. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that have been looking at this saying, shouldn't we be much more focused in on who the players are? But it looks like this is going to be yet another assessment for Pochettino and company with this group of players.
So we had you identify 3 burning questions heading into this window.
Okay, so number one, and it's going to go to goalkeeping, which is something that we have talked about, let's be honest, all cycle. Matt Turner, to his credit, is now playing consistently back in some place that he knows in New England. That's great. However, he's not on this roster. And that's a little bit strange, given who he is and what he has done, and that he was the goalkeeper for the last World Cup, although it's certainly fair if you're talking about how he has not played. But you got Matt Freese, Roman Celentano, and Jonathan Klinsmann. Jonathan Klinsmann and Roman Celentano, no caps for the national team. Matt Freese obviously started this summer and looks to be now like the number one, and that's with a question mark next to it. So the goalkeeping position is still up in the air, Mosse. It is a little strange to me, I'll be honest, that Matt Freese is now in pole position. But I guess it shouldn't be strange to me, given the fact that we've talked so much about how Matt Turner has not been able to kick on. But it's just, I think it's going to, after this, these couple of games, I'll be looking at Matt Freese, who we know can save penalties, but against these two teams and good teams and perennial World Cup appearing teams in Japan and South Korea, I hope and I think that Matt Freese is going to get tested, and he's got to step up. But if he does, I mean, whether you believe it or not, or whether you like it or not, there's a real possibility that come next summer, Matt Freese is the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. And I can't believe I'm saying that right now, but the world is strange.
And he will get tested in these 2 games. These are quality opponents. Sung Hung Min is in the South Korea squad. So I agree with you. I'm very curious to see how Freese looks in goal.
Okay, so that's one question. The second question would be the players that are coming back in. And Balogun is back in. Pulisic is back in after all the craziness of the summer. Dest is back in and playing very, very well. So it's the players that are coming back in, and I guess in their case, reintegrating with the national team and trying, I guess, to get in the good graces of Pochettino. And then slash the players that starred this summer. We just talked about Matt Freese, but you could talk about Diego Luna and Sebastian Berhalter and these types that kind of starred this summer. What do they look like integrating with these other players and these other very, very good players? So, for example, a Diego Luna, who had kind of had this glow up this summer, does he look even better now, surrounded by quote unquote better players? I know it's subjective, but if Pulisic is on the field with a Diego Luna, does that bring out an even better version of Diego Luna? Or is he a shrinking violet in that situation and can't keep up or can't live up to his side? I don't think that's the case, but I'm fascinated to see something like that. So that's my second one.
Yeah, it would behoove Pulisic to play well in these games, given all these summer drama. And I agree with you. I'm curious to see the dynamic with him and Luna. They shared the field during that ill-fated Nations League Final Four at SoFi. We attended both those matches, but this is going to be more reps now of them playing together. So curious to see how that looks.
And then finally, it's this team with, as we mentioned, so little time before the World Cup, playing against two quality opponents. And kudos to the United States Soccer Federation for scheduling these. I think that these are when you talk about Japan and South Korea, as we mentioned, perennial World Cup attendees. This is the type of team that I think, Mosse, and tell me if you agree with this. This is the type of team that potentially you could come up against. Yes, certainly in a group stage where I think the conventional wisdom is that you are as good or better than them. Or this is the type of team that you could come up against certainly in the knockout phase, because both of these teams have made it out of their groups. So there's an element of, does the score matter? Does the result matter? Well, yeah, it kind of does, specifically because these are the two teams. They're not elite teams in the world. They're not the Germanys of the world, which we definitely want to be able to compete against. But these are teams that we should expect to beat. We should expect at times to have more of the ball, but these are good tests for this team.
This is a big one for me. It's not often that the U.S. gets to play quality non-CONCACAF opposition. The few times that's happened in this cycle, it hasn't gone all that well. They lost a friendly to Germany and Hartford early in the cycle. Remember, they lost 5-1 to Colombia right before the Copa America. They did draw Brazil 1-1, but given Brazil's form at the time, that was a vastly overrated feat. They then lost to Uruguay in the Copa America, lost to Turkey and Switzerland before this most recent Gold Cup. So, yeah, I mean, they play South Korea and Japan now, Ecuador in October, Uruguay in November. We'll see who else in November and who in March. But I know it's friendlies and people can dismiss it, but it would be nice between now and the World Cup if the U.S. could notch a notable win and have that in the resume going into the World Cup. That would fill you with some confidence that they could make a run at the World Cup.
Well, to your point, Japan ranked 17th. South Korea ranked, Korea Republic ranked 23rd. And I know, we talk about the rankings and what they mean or what they don't, but that's where they are right now. You could actually argue that they could be higher ranked. And under Pochettino, who I think is also looking for a big win or maybe some big wins here. What is it? Top ranked win so far for Pochettino, 37th ranked Panama in the opening match for Poch. So I think he needs it too, kind of proof of concept, because ultimately, I hate to break it to you, I'm not breaking it to anybody. Nobody gives a crap how this team plays next summer as long as they win. So just win, baby, and win against these types of teams. So those are some of the things that I'm looking for in this camp. There's certainly others that are justifiable and valid in terms of questions out there.
What is the U.S.'s last signature win?
I can't.
I think you might have to go back multiple cycles. I mean, obviously, if you take it back to beating Ghana in the opening match of the 2014 World Cup, because it's a World Cup and Ghana was a pretty good team.
So you think outside of CONCACAF. So
throw out all the Mexicos.
Yeah, okay, then jeez.
It's been a while, huh?
I mean, it's the World Cup then, right?
I mean, over the years, you guys, obviously going all the way back, beating Argentina 3-0 at the Copa America 95, beat Brazil in the 98 Gold Cup. The U.S. had some wins over Germany. You beat England at Foxborough. You scored off a header. So over the years, the U.S. has had some signature wins that generated headlines around the world. It's been a while since there's been one of those.
Yeah, we beat England in Foxborough a year before the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then, we used that. So having those touchstones, having those positive markers are important. This is why Pochettino, because he's kind of come so late to it, it's hard to have those. And so if you could have a couple of good things to point to, either the individual performances and certainly the team performances, that much better.
Portugal in 2002, obviously. Spain in that 2009 Confederations Cup. So if you go through the years, there have been a few that really stand out. But
it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. All right. So should we look into the starting 11 here?
Yeah. So the way we're framing this is you've come up with the best possible starting 11 from this roster, but then you're also going to identify a couple spots where you might want to get a look at some new players.
So I look at this roster that Pochettino has called, and I know there's a lot of people scratching their head, and I think fairly so, and not a lot of people predicted that this was going to happen. And so I think, what if this was the World Cup? What if this was it? This is who Pochettino called in. Who do you play to give yourself kind of the best chance of winning? again, you looked at the goalkeepers. Well, as much as it pains me or surprises me right now, yeah, it's going to be Matt Freese. And if he really is the number one, then you're damn right you put him in goal here. Because again, I want him to get in as many potential games where he is going to be under the gun as possible. And I think that he's going to have much more action than he has had and that we saw this summer. So Matt Freese in goal. Serginho Dest, as we mentioned, I want him at right back. I know there's talk about him playing left back. I want him at right back. And I want to see how he is physically. So far, so good from a club perspective. He's flying right now. He looks good. I want to make sure that he has that energy and that insatiable need to go forward. I know at times it's difficult, but I'm excited to see Serginho Dest, and I want to see him on the right-hand side. And I think that's where he's best. And I think Pochettino would agree, although he might play him on the left. Chris Richards and Tim Ream. I'm putting them in right now because they have been the most successful tandem. But there's a part of me that if this is about assessing, as Pochettino has said, then I kind of want to see a Blackman in there or an Nokai Banks in there, even though he's only 18 years old, because I think that's why they're in camp. And so I'm going to stick with Tim Ream in that if this was a World Cup game, but part of me wants to see a different center back come in. Chris Richards, I definitely want to see continue on. And then on the left-hand side, Max Arston. That's who we have. I mean, until Jedi is back, it's slim pickings. But he seems to like Max, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and continue on here. When it comes to the midfield, I got Tyler Adams, Luca Della Torre, and Diego Luna. And, this is this is as good as it's going to get here, I think, for this midfield. Yes, Sebastian Berhalter may have a case at times, and I think he will see some time over these next two games. But that's who I'm going with. Again, we talked earlier. I want to see Diego Luna in with all these, and then up top. I mean, it's really like what we've wanted all along, and that the stars have aligned and the soccer gods have smiled upon us here. And so that's Christian Pulisic on the left, Tim Weah on the right, and Flo Balogun up top. And I think that's a pretty good 11. Again, who knows what Pochettino is going to do, but that would be my 11 if I just said I have to win this game, and that's who the starting 11 would be.
I agree with you. And also I agree with Noah Kai Banks needing to start one of these two games. Listen, the minutes have dried up at Augsburg. He might not be anything, but you don't know. Let's get a look. It's a position of need. He's a young player coming up. It's just something different. So I'd like to see him get a start in place of Ream in one of these two games. And then up top, the Balogun-Sargent dynamic is interesting. I don't know if we should read anything into the fact that Sargent was in the original 22 and Balogun was a late add. Does that tell us something about the pecking order going into this window? Maybe not. But, they're both, by the way, coming off good weekends at club level. Sargent scored both goals for Norwich in their 2-0 away win over Blackburn. Balogun started and scored for Monaco in their 3-2 win over Strasbourg. Haji Wright, by the way, scored again for Coventry against Oxford United. A lot of people still wondering why he's not in the squad. But yeah, the Balogun-Sargent minutes are going to be interesting in these two games.
Look, if Flo Balogun had continued on the way we thought and not been derailed by the injuries, then I would be saying, put Josh Sargent in and let's see if it's a different Josh Sargent than we have seen at times in the past with the national team. But it's almost as if, like we said last week, a second bite at that apple. I want to see, is Flo Balogun still the guy? And when that whistle blows, and if it's Flo Balogun up top, and the flow of the game happens, and we see what he's doing, the runs he's making, the touches that he has, obviously the chances that he's creating, and God willing, the goals that he's scoring, then you want to say, okay, I get it. I'm reminded why there was so much hype and so much excitement about that guy. Because again, it's like a new player almost coming into the team.
We joked about this at the very top, but I want to circle back to it. There's a type of U.S. fan that cannot fathom that Pochettino actually believes what he says about MLS and that he's calling these players just on his own. They're convinced there has to be something up here, something going on behind the scenes, that someone's exerting pressure on him to call up MLS players. I mean, all jokes aside, do you think there's any possibility that that's happening, or no? Pochettino gets to call whoever he wants, and there's never been any sort of pressure on any U.S. coach to call up X amount of MLS players in a given
Wait,
squad.
you're asking me whether the conspiracy theory, the tinfoil theory of the U.S. men's national team coach has a quota or is instructed to call in certain players relative to Major League Soccer. You think that that's the case?
I don't, but a lot of people do.
Okay, I know. Some people do. This is a little tease. I'm going to talk about Pochettino and what I gleaned from our trip to Columbus at the end of the show. However, I will say this. No, I don't think that that is true by any stretch of the imagination. Um, I understand why people say that, and I understand where it comes from. And again, it goes back to the insecurities that we have and the inferiority complex that we have. And all I will say is that Mauricio Pochettino is strangely the biggest proponent of the American player. And I do think that he believes what he says in that he doesn't care where you play. Now, ultimately, the judgment is going to happen next summer, as we've said before. But I think he just likes good soccer players. And the eye test for him, I think, is very, very important. So, all right. So we'll see ultimately what he does with this lineup. Obviously, 2 different games, so he could change the lineups. I remember I wanted to say this. There are a lot of people, like I said, that were scratching their heads as to what this camp is all about. But to your point, when it comes to trying some new players, if after you could argue and disagree with Pochettino, why are you doing this? Why put that aside? But if this is about assessment, and if this is the quote last chance saloon for talent to impress themselves upon Pochettino, then there's a huge part of me that kind of would want to see that. Even though I might not agree with it or others might not agree with it, okay, fine. Then let's see it and let's use it, even though it might be a waste, but let's do it and let's use it right now. Then to your point, start some different people, start some younger people going forward. I don't know if it's going to be a mix of that or he's just saying that, but then he's going to start the best possible 11 that he has.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.